Can we move from Victoria now to the state we just mentioned, Tasmania?
Yeah.
Where we know there are going to be quite a few games there over the next few weeks. In fact, Hawthorn will be playing the next 3 games now in Tasmania because of that Collingwood decision that's just come out in the last couple of days. Ed and boys, the Colin Carter review into whether Tasmania deserves to have its own football club and whether in fact they will be granted an AFL licence has been completed. It's been delivered to Gillan McLachlan. It's been looked at by the AFL and will be tabled next Wednesday when the AFL Commission meet. There will be a big debate around what will then go to the presidents, and the presidents will vote, in my view. I think the vote will happen in September when the presidents next meet. I can't tell you exactly what is in the Carter findings. Pretty much everyone that I've spoken to who've spoken to Colin feel that he is very positive about Tasmania gaining its own licence. Clearly, it's now been written in the context of COVID and the game hemorrhaging hundreds of millions of dollars. But I can say that whatever else the report says, it clearly states that Tasmania deserves to have a far bigger say and stake in the AFL competition.
So, Kerry, I reckon what will happen is get there. They won't vote on it. I'd be surprised because no one knows what's happening back home.
Well, it'll be put to the president.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with everything you're saying there. I think what will happen though is it'll be pushed back as far as they're not going to come in next year. That's not going to happen.
Oh, clearly not.
Anyway,
no.
So that's what I'm just for clarity. What's happening though is that the Tasmanian government is getting very excited. As you just said, they are now going to the AFL saying we want content, but we want quality content. We've seen what Essendon and Hawthorn did earlier this year. Capacity crowd, great atmosphere, and not only that, it was the second highest rating show, probably because of the magnificent commentary that was going on Fox Footy there. But it was the second highest rating, I think only by 1,000 people, behind Collingwood Adelaide, believe it or not, on the Saturday or Sunday afternoon. So that shows that there is a real appetite down there, and people are now getting past this we deserve. What Tasmania I do know are happening at the moment is the presidents of all the clubs have realised they've got to get their Tasmanian League right. They've got to get their feeder competitions right, not unlike what we put up on Footy Classified a couple of months back, and they've got to get their junior progression. And if they get all that right, and I think if they hook in with Far North Queensland now that we have got the Olympics there in 2032 and Darwin, and to get the 20th team in, things are going to start to roll.
How many years, sorry?
I reckon 6 or 7.
6 or 7 years?
Yeah.
And why presidents? Why isn't it just the AFL?
No, it has to be 75% of the presidents have to vote.
Which was the same thing that happened when the Gold Coast came in GWS. Yep. So next year, what the view from the AFL and the clubs now is that those Hawthorn and North Melbourne deals will roll over for at least one more year. I think there was a view that the Tasmanian Premier, Peter Gutwein, would not be prepared to give those clubs new deals until he knew that there was a stake in the game. And I think that will happen. But I also think the AFL is not averse to the idea of playing more than just 7 games, Hawthorn's 4 and North Melbourne's 3, that there might be a Collingwood game or a Richmond game or a St Kilda game in Tasmania next year, and potentially up to 3 or 4 extra games in Tasmania next year.
So, Caro, that it sounds familiar, and we've spoken about this, and we tabled that they need blockbuster games, even if it's one a year down there against one of the big teams. There is now talk, just to move on, North Melbourne is obviously the interesting one here. They don't want to go to Tasmania, and Tasmania don't really want to have them.
No, they will. I reckon they'll get another year of their deal.
Yeah,
right?
So they're going to hear, but I think where people are starting to look, and I'd like to promulgate this as an idea, is that North Melbourne are a club that needs to be in the AFL. Okay, so let's say we want to keep North Melbourne. There's no one trying to push them out, but everyone has to make dinner once a week in this household in the AFL these days. So I would like to put forward a radical idea that North Melbourne gets their zone to run and to promote, and it's called the North of Melbourne. The biggest growth corridor in Australia is from my old stomping ground, Broady, through Craigieburn, out to Donnybrook. You've got CSA, you've got all these major companies out there, and if you go out, you cannot see a goalpost.
Essendon have grabbed a fair bit of that area.
No, they have done nothing out there. North let it slip. When I was a kid, when it was North Zone, Carlton had their zone there. Richmond stuck their head out there for a minute before they became a good club. And Collingwood actually, set up the Roxburgh Park Magpies. What we need to do is go out there and get every kid involved in football again. And if North Melbourne can do that, they're in the competition, stay at Arden Street. They've got a huddle that they do that Peter Scanlon introduced, which absolutely dovetails into the multicultural aspect of the northern suburbs of Melbourne. That's where it is. Bulldogs have got the template. They've done it beautifully out in the western suburbs at the Ballarat. Other teams are doing it around the place. You've seen what the Swans have done with their academies. Let's get this happening in the north-eastern side of Melbourne. And I tell you what, North Melbourne will more than pay their way.
So who funds that? Where's the metrics and the economic? So the AFL funds it?
The AFL does.
You be a workhorse for us and we'll continue to fund your club.
We'll look after you.
So how has this swung around so positively for Tasmania? Gillon McLachlan has been against it, hasn't he?
No, I have felt from the day he became AFL CEO that it was too hard a battle for him to fight day one, and so he continued to let Hawthorn and later North Melbourne come in. He said, one of his first speeches he made was that he felt that Tasmania deserved their own team. I think deep down it's all about money, and I think with federal government funding and now the Tasmanian government coming to the party and big sponsors, it's not beyond the realms that it will happen.
That's the nub of it, isn't it? Have they got the economic engine? We know they give $5 million to North and Hawthorn, but have they got the economic engine to drive an AFL club and turn over 70 to 100 million? That's the real question.
But Ross,
I understand the history. But where's the money from the governments?
Gold Coast and the GWS.
Where's the money going in from the governments into their junior development programs? Why are they waiting for the AFL to drive their leagues and their junior development?
I
don't understand it.
As this was all being set up, was that when the AFLW was set up, Tasmania pushed, but not nearly hard enough to have their own women's team. They could have fixed a problem that didn't happen when the AFL was set up.
I like that.
And unfortunately, North Melbourne got a hybrid version, and they don't honour it at all. They're not even called the Tasmanian Kangaroos. So, and a lot of the good Tassie players got sent to GWS. An insult upon an insult. So, big mistake there. I hope the Carter report at least addresses women's footy.
To answer your question there, they put money in now for the next 6 years into junior development. They fix up the Tasmanian Football League, and I know they're speaking to senior coaches.
Why haven't they been doing it?
Because it hasn't happened. And there's infighting and all sorts of things. Okay,
so we don't need to sort their backyard.
Forget why it hasn't happened.
Whack the AFL a bit. We're not there, but
no. They've got. That's it. They've got to get themselves right.
Yeah.
They're speaking to people like Michael Malthouse to go down to maybe help coach coaches and set things up. And then what you do from there is you tap into the billions of money that's going to go into Queensland for the Olympic Games. So you might set up an institute of sport for 4 or 5 Olympic sports down there, in the football, in the stadium, with the health, with the university, with the research. So you go into health budget, education budget, sport and recreation budget and tourism budget. Suddenly 20 million is a round of drinks. 20 million from the state, 20 from the feds, 20 from the AFL, and you've got money.
And when could we, I know we're leaving this, but when could we hear an announcement then? What's the earliest you could say, OK, they're coming in and this is the year? Could it be in the next 12 months?
Yeah, I think COVID has been a real problem, But certainly we'll know, I reckon, next week what the Carter report actually recommended, and I think it will be far more positive for Tasmania than it was as we sit here today.